Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thursday, March 25th, 2021, Ross Board of Education regular meeting. Mr. Kinsel, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Here.
Mr. Bossy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
And Mr. Chanel?
Here.
Everyone can please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Kunkel or Steve, do we have any asterisks on the agenda? I think there's a couple maybe.
We have two
dates.
minor things on the personnel schedule. First one is on Schedule C, Vern Butler. There's just a change in his effective date to reflect the date that he actually started employment. And then on Schedule D, I believe that we incorrectly listed Joe Brooks' last name, so that's been updated to reflect Joe Brooks as a 7th grade assistant track coach.
Okay.
That's it.
We'll move on to the approval of the minutes of February 18th. Can we get a motion to approve February 18th, 2021 minutes, please? Mrs. Hayes and Mrs. Webb will be second. Mr. Kinsel, can you call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.
Mr. Bossy?
Yes.
And Mr. Chanel?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to public comments. Mr. Castaner, did anybody email you?
We didn't have it.
Okay, we'll move on to 6. Dr. Kunkel, Superintendent report.
Yes, Mr. President, we have a very busy agenda tonight. Very exciting. We have 2 presentations tonight. First, we have Mr. Perry from Morgan Elementary, followed by an athletics update by Mr. Richards. So we'll let Mr. Perry go first with Morgan Elementary.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Board of Education, Mrs. Tompkins, Dr. Kunkel, Mr. Castigator, and Mr. Kinsel. What I'd like to do tonight is I'd like to say how well behaved a couple of our board members' kids are.
I got trouble on Boston, so you may hear about them tomorrow.
What I'd like to talk about today, last June, July, August, we had a lot of questions. Were we going to start up? Were we not? Were we going to hybrid? What was going to happen? So the decision was made to start back 5 days a week, which was awesome. So I had a lot of questions, but I had 3 driving questions that were running through my mind. One is, are we going to be able to keep these kids in school? What's the attendance going to look like? One was, how is their emotional learning piece going to be? And thirdly, how is the academics going to be? So tonight, I'm going to present some data to show you exactly what the answers were to these questions. So the first thing is the attendance. I have some notes down there. Last year, Morgan Elementary had the highest attendance of all schools in Butler County at 97.5. We also had the lowest chronic absence rate in Butler County at 0.6. So we are used to our students coming to school and having great attendance. So what I thought was the 3 months that we have the most difficulty getting students to school is December, January, and February. So I ran the attendance from last year for December, January, and February, and I ran this year's. And it was amazing to see that last year, for those 3 months, we had 94.4% attendance. This year was 97.7. Yeah, that's what I said. So I just thought that was interesting, that my first question was, are we going to be able to keep kids in school? And that does count the quarantines. That does count the kids who were quarantined. So I just thought that was amazing, and I have the data there to show. The second thing was their social emotional piece. So what we did a survey to our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders, and it's on here, it's front and back. So one of the questions was, after being remote to the end of the last year, I was blank to come back to school. Excited, nervous, or scared. And as you can see, 66% of our kids said excited, 30% said nervous, and it didn't even register for scared. So once again, I think another testimony they were ready to come back. This one I thought was very interesting too. And our counselor went around and explained what these meant. How connected do you feel teachers? And one of the concerns was Teachers can't be connected with students, they got masks on, they got all of this. Well, the students put 80%, I feel that they know me very well. And 13% said, I feel less connected than in the years past, and it didn't even register on the ones that says, I do not feel connected. So once again, I think another good testament to our staff that the kids came back and they were ready to go. The other question on the back, what do I look forward to the most in the school year? 76% see my friends, which I don't think surprises anybody. And then 16% being out of the house. This one was interesting. Sorry, teachers, but being back to school with my teachers did not register. So I just thought that was a neat one. Now that I've been in school with the new rules and the protocols and so forth, I feel comfortable or scared. 86% of the kids feel comfortable with the new protocols, and 14% said scared. How easy has it been to follow the COVID-related safety measures and protocols? And we had about 50% said not at all, and then 32% a slight problem keeping the mask on and staying 6 feet away, and 17% said really hard. So, I worry about getting sick at school, and you see about 39% say yes, and 60% said no. So then on the back page, now that we've been back at school, how do you feel about wearing a mask? Half said don't like it, can't stand it, was 32%, and no big deal was 18%. Where do you learn best? 90% of the students said at school. At school. And when learning at home, do you have the technology and help that you needed? And we were talking about the remote learning when we did a few days of remote. We had 83% said yes. So once again, looking at that, I feel really good about some of the answers we had here. I felt they're excited to be back. And when you throw on the fact that we only had about 10% of the kids that went remote, and then half of those students came back the second semester. So that was, really exciting. And then when you look at some comments, I don't like having to be hot and sweaty with the mask. And I said amen to that. I'm right there with you. Having to stay 6 feet away. Not liking it because we can't give hugs. That's an elementary, I know. Do not like that we cannot talk to our friends unless we have our mask on. Do not like it that we can't play on the playground. We just opened up the playground since that survey. And then we have one there that you can read. It basically, once again, the student, a chance to learn more not at home because they don't really like learning at home. Teachers, counselors, principal are all very, very, very nice. And Mrs. Miller is a nice and sweet, you can tell whose teacher that is. But you can read through that. And another one, I like being able to see my friends and teachers every day. I do not like having the assigned seats in class and at lunch. But, and a lot of them put on there, they don't like wearing masks. And once again, I'm right there with them all. I think we all are. So my first two questions that I have, I think I feel really good about. We have some great answers. And the last and the paramount question was, how is this going to affect our academics? So we use MAP, which is the measurement of our progress. So it measures our academic progress. And MAP looks at two things, but the biggest thing it looks at is growth, but it also gives us achievement. So what I thought would be interesting is, what has the growth looked like compared to the year before for the same time period of fall to winter? And then what does our achievement look like? So on the first page, if you take a look, we have Morgan growth. And I have fall of 20 to winter 21, and then the right side we have fall of 19 to winter 2020. And if you look at the breakdowns, you can see in math that everything went up. So what does that say? We made great progress in the same time period after the pandemic. And there are some things in there that says, well, yes, the kids were lacking when they came in, so they made more progress, which could be true. I don't disagree with that. When I show you academics, we'll take a look at that, and it might kind of answer that question a little bit. If you take a look at reading, the same thing occurred. Now, the other thing that we did do is we also increased the amount of time for language arts and math. because we wanted to concentrate on those two subject areas to make sure that we were able to catch up. So looking at as far as the growth, I was thrilled, very excited. Once again, it's a testament to the staff at Morgan, because you got to remember, all of this happened with protocols in place that said, don't get near that kid closer than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. We can't have our small group as much. We can't share materials. We can't share books. We can't do small group. We can't do pairs. We can't do any of that. So when you factor that in, just an awesome job. And once again, compliments to our students and the staff at Morgan for the great job they've done. So with the growth, awesome. Well, the other piece to learning, obviously, is achievement. So what I did is I took a look at the same type of information, and I went from fall of 1920 to fall of 2021, winter of 1920 to winter of 2021. And what I did is I broke it down into 3 groups. One was the students who started out the year below the 25th percentile. I looked at the students that were below the 50th percentile, and I looked at the students that were above the 75th percentile. So this is achievement. So looking at the fall of 19, the fall of 20, when you look at achievement in math, grade 1, 2, 3, pretty good. Starting out. So once again, that's a testament to what our teachers did with the remote learning. Because once again, they were providing information, material that kept our students right where they needed to be. So they started the year out in pretty good shape. Now I caution, this is an overall of all the students. I'm not going to tell you that there's a handful of students that this isn't the case. Because there's always students that did nothing during remote or very little because they didn't have help, parents were working, whatever. But as a whole population, that's very good. So then I looked at the winter, same type of process, below 25th percent from winter of last year to this year, and you can see, once again, statistically, those are pretty dead on. So what that says is overall, our students achieved just as well as they did the year before. Then I went to the 50th percentile, and a little different here. So you look at the fall, and we had 13% of the students in grade 1 in math were below, and then with 2021 was 32%. So then we look at the winter, and you can see once again, though, that caught up pretty good. So once again, very pleased on the achievement piece. If you look at the next page, and like I said, that's all for math, and you look at the next page, this was the very interesting piece of all that I saw, this above the 70th percentile. These are our high flyers. So what you look at there is the number of students in the fall that started grade 1 was 69%. The number that started this fall was 40%. 77, 53. Now, once again, no fault of the teachers because they did exactly what the district told them to do. We are reinforcing the skills. We're remediating. We're not taking them above. We're just trying to hold our own. So that's very indicative of what happened. So then when you look at the winter, last year we were 75th. You still see first and second grade was down a little bit. Third grade and fourth grade went up a little, stayed the same. And then you have the overall. So what that shows is the third and fourth graders were able to become some of that, more than the first and second, and that's math. So you look at the reading. I'm not going to read all of that to you. You can take a look, but same trend in reading. So once again, very pleased. The staff was going over this. They've met us grade levels. So our challenge was obviously to continue what we're doing. And some of the protocols have loosened up now. Instead of 6 feet, we have 3 feet with a mask on. And so we've done some things there that our reading groups are more than 12 minutes. I mean, teachers, seriously, they had little timers, and at 12 minutes, they had to stop the reading instruction and send them back. So now we have some things put in place. For example, cafeteria. I cannot keep mask on because they're eating. They're going to be quarantined. So what we did was we arranged it that our reading groups are the same table comrades that they set at the cafeteria. So now the reading groups can increase. They can be 20 minutes because if they get quarantined in the cafeteria, they're going to be quarantined anyway. So that was something we did. So, and the other thing that's interesting, in our data from every year, fall to winter, we have great results, but they're even better from fall to spring. So loosening up some of the protocols and enabling us to do some things that we usually do, I can't wait to see what they're going to look like at the end of the year. So once again, kudos to the staff. If you see a Morgan teacher, tell them great job, because if you'd have told me at the beginning of the year of that question I asked, that I was going to have these results, I'm an optimistic person. I had great faith in our staff and our students. I don't know if I would have expected them to be this good. So that's something that hopefully the board, to answer some of your questions. The last 2 pages, this is kind of an interesting one also. This takes a look at growth. And what this does, it looks at the entire grade level. And once again, what MAP is, it's a standardized test in a sense that's a norm referenced. So it looks at thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of kids, does their norming, it says this is where the norms are. So the numbers you want to look at there, is we're looking at language arts. If you look at grade level norms, it's the 4th at fall, winter, and this is fall to winter of this year, you see growth. You see grade level norms. The 2 numbers you want to look at there is school conditional growth index. And what that is, if the conditional growth index is 0, that means that grade level grew exactly what they were expected to do, 0. Okay? It's almost like getting out the bell curve, if you remember back to your days of the bell curve. We have standard deviations. Basically, what that is a standard deviation. So if you take a look and you see the growth index of 4.1, 4.0, that's like 4 standard deviations above the norm. And then the one you really want to look at is you take a look at the school conditional growth percentile. So what that does, it says if you take a look at a class that was comprised of the similar data that you have here, and at the end of the year, you scored better than 99 out of 100 of those classes or grade levels. So once again, outstanding. We all 99s, we had an 82, but once again, that's better than 82 of the classes. And then you look at math, and you have all 99s, 177. Once again, I think some protocols cost that a little bit, just kindergarten instruction is just a little different. And when you have, it was so bizarre for me to walk into a kindergarten in this room this year and see desks. 20 years, I've never seen that. We have tables, we do grouping. So I think that had a little bit to do with it, with our math instruction. So overall, you look at the one, a 6 point, that's like 6 standard deviations above. That's outstanding. So once again, a testament to our instructional process and the hard work from the students and the staff at Morgan Elementary. So I hope that was enough information for you. It wasn't too much data overload. I could actually sit and talk to you for hours on data, but I won't bore you.
Mr. Bossi, do you have any questions for Mr. Perry?
No, not this time.
Okay, Mr. Chanel?
I'm a data guy, so I love seeing this stuff. Does this include the remote students in these figures?
Let me think for a second. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And my own son, I saw similar trends. A little bit of hangover in the fall, and then took off. And just kudos to what you're doing and what his teachers are doing, and the entire staff. So, thank you.
Mrs. Hayes?
Oh, I just echo the sentiment.
This is Mrs. Webb?
I don't have any questions, but I am I think I'm with you. I would not have anticipated these results, and I love data. I love how you compiled this together, and it's truly, it's amazing. And the wheels are turning in my head because I have to write a dissertation soon, as Dr. Kunkel knows, and that was actually one of my topics I was going to just try to investigate, the effects of online learning and quarantines and students that are living like remote instruction as opposed to in person, and the difference. So I love this. Thank you for putting it together, and congratulations to the Morgan staff and you and the families and parents and students.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Well, what I thought was interesting for you guys to see is you hear DeWine and so forth saying, hey, what do we do? Do we extend the school year? Do we do all of this to catch our kids up? I think this is true hard data that says Now, it's not saying that, once again, we have some kids that summer school, yeah, it's going to be necessary because a lot of factors involved. But it's not a majority of the kids. So we have to feel comfortable with that.
Just looking at the questions at the beginning, it was interesting. I love those answers for some of those, but I do have, and I don't like talking about my kids at school board meetings, but I do have kids at Morgan, and I've been just unbelievably impressed with the adjustments the teachers have made. When we take our week off of after Christmas because we were worried about, everybody getting quarantined, and just the teachers adjusting. I don't want to say their names, but it is amazing. And just, if you don't mind, real quick, just talk. You got a veteran staff for the most part. You get some new people, but just some of the adjustments they've made and how proud you've been of it.
Well, like I said, the biggest adjustment to remote learning was a better job of planning using the on-site, the website, and so forth, keeping parents up, sending the paperwork home. The adjustments with the teaching obviously have been, like I said, everything's 3 feet apart. Kids are wearing masks all day. Recess, we have 15 minutes because the protocol says 15 minutes, walking through the halls and all that. But the instructional piece, the biggest piece for when they're there have been the reading groups.
Right.
That's been very challenging and not sharing materials. And also, we were just getting our STEAM program up and going, and it's pretty much just stopped because we can't share the material, we can't share all of that. So, yeah, the adjustment of going to that remote or those couple calamity days, I'll be honest with you, the teacher did a great job, and they met, they planned. The younger grades had to run a lot of things off because you can't go all online.
But it was
And they
all
sent theirs home and calamity days, yeah. So they've done a great job. And they stepped up. You didn't hear complaining. You didn't hear any of that. They said, hey, we got to do it. So,
I mean, we would get messages from teachers at like a Saturday night at 8 o'clock. They're obviously working, and they're sending stuff, and it's been amazing that the adjustments they've had to make too.
yeah, I told my staff after our first remote learning that I would give our staff an A.
Yeah.
And I also said, coming back, knowing what we know now, we can't do the same thing we did in last March if we go remote for those few days.
Right.
We have to step it up, and they did.
Right.
And they changed it. You probably saw some of that
Oh, yeah.
as a teacher. So.
Tom, this is a reflection of your leadership, dedicated staff, students, families, so thank you.
It's a
Well
team
done.
effort.
Yeah.
So, right. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you so much.
Good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Richards.
That's going to be hard to follow.
It is. I'll tell you, I don't have data. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to do one better. Board of Education Administration, thanks for having us back. It's been almost exactly 3 months since I got to make a similar presentation after the fall season, where we brought up our coaches of the year for the league and talked about some of the great success that we had. And I'm thrilled to be back here at the conclusion of a phenomenal winter season. And I'm just looking at my watch, hoping, here in about 3 more months, I can come back and talk about a great spring season. We're kicking that off as we speak. But really, what I want to show you tonight is the living, breathing example. It's not data, but these are real people who represent the success of Ross Athletics. And these are the people who are committed to our culture that is built on valuing relationships, holding each other accountable, maintaining a growth mindset, and being committed to service, not only to the program, to the community, but to each other. That's the culture that we've built in Ross Athletics, and these are fine examples of the success that culture brings. So I'm going to talk about some of the folks who couldn't make it tonight, but I'm also going to talk about those folks who did. Up first, we've got our boys basketball program. They've done something that I don't know that I've ever seen at any school I've been a part of this past winter. So the boys basketball program, they were league champions in 7th grade, league champions in 8th grade, and you see where I'm going with this, league champions at the freshman level and league champions at the JV level. And then they pulled off something that hasn't been done in 26 years, and they won the SWAC championship at the varsity level. First time since 1994, and first time in a long time that we won the SWAC championship outright. And some of the key players in that program were our league coach of the year, SWAC coach of the year, Coach David Lane. He was also named the Southwest Ohio Division II Coach of the Year and the Coaches Association Division II Coach of the Year. So congratulations to David Lane. And then also our SWAC Player of the Year is Max Stepanek, senior basketball player who is committed to go on to play at Old Dominion. So congratulations to Max Stepanek and all of the boys basketball program. Up next, I'd like to invite to the stage here Coach Ed Roberts. Come on up, Coach. Coach Ed Roberts is our boys and girls bowling coach. And I know that Mr. Perry got up and talked about a lot of the questions that he had at the start of the school year. We had the exact same questions at the start of the year and then at the start of the winter. I remember talking to Coach Roberts, Coach Dunn, Coach Stewart, all the kids out here tonight about those exact same questions. Are we going to have a winter season after we finish that successful fall season? Are we going to have to follow all these new standards? And of course, the OHSAA, gotta love them. They came out on winter season eve, if you will, the night before it was supposed to start with the regulations. And kudos to our people for stepping up big time and not only following those regulations, but making sure that we could succeed despite them. Coach Roberts is an example of that. He led our bowling teams, boys and girls both, to second place finishes in the league. And we're here tonight to highlight some of the individuals on the boys bowling team. Up first, we'd like to recognize Mr. Nick Davis, who is the SWAC Boys Bowler of the Year. And then our next bowler is Mr. Caleb Smith, and he was an OHSAA Division I state qualifier as a junior. So congratulations, Caleb Smith. And I think Coach Roberts would agree that we were, what, Coach, a couple of pins away from SWAC champions on both sides? Both sides. Both sides, a couple of pins away. I think it was the pesky Wildcats that got us, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
So congratulations to our bowling team. Up next, I'd like to invite Coach Joe Stewart up to the stage. Coach Stewart is our boys and girls swim coach, swimming and diving. And talk about questions at the beginning of the season. We were wrestling with no pun intended, we'll get to wrestling. we were wrestling with a very serious question. Coach, what was that question that we had to answer? Where were we going to swim? Where were we going to swim? We don't have a pool on campus, and we sure as heck weren't going to build one at that time. So we worked really hard. Coach Stewart was out there banging on doors, making phone calls just to figure out where we could actually swim. And thanks to LA Fitness over at Bridgewater Falls, thanks to the flexibility of this guy, and thanks to the commitment of all of our swimmers and their families, they literally went to Bridgewater Falls every single day after school, got in a pool, were harassed by members of the club. There was a whole list of obstacles that they faced. And throughout those obstacles, they came together, they competed well, and they succeeded. Okay, and Coach Stewart is an example of that success. Coach Stewart was awarded the SWAC Coach of the Year for girls swimming and diving. And he accomplished something that we have not done in school history, and that's we won the league, won the SWAC championship. If you know anything about swimming in this area, you know Talawanda is king and queen. They've ruled the roost for many years, and we finally knocked them off. And that's a testament to the work of this guy right here. So congratulations to Coach Joe Stewart, SWAC Coach of the Year. And then we also like to recognize not only were our girls the team champions, first time in program history, but we also will recognize Savannah Mueller. She's actually swimming right now in a meet in Indianapolis.
Where she committed, because she's swimming at the University of Indianapolis this year.
There we go. So where she's committed, fantastic. But she was named the SWAC Swimmer of the Year for the girls. So congratulations to Savannah Mueller.
I also want to share with Savannah, we were so close to getting her to qualify for state, which would have been our first qualifier for state ever. She was .01 away from making it. She was the 25th spot. They take 24. And what's even harder is that out of the 4 districts that the state of Ohio is competing at, the top, if you finish in the top 2 in your district, you automatically qualify. So it's 8 automatic qualifiers, 16 at large. One of the girls in the other districts, who was an automatic qualifier, had a slower time than her and made it in over her. So, which is tough because she's a senior. But I tell her, how solid is because the stats show that you were one of 24 fastest swimmers in Ohio, regardless of whether you made it or not. So, just wanted to point that out.
That's awesome.
All right, congratulations. And then last but certainly not least, and once again, I remind everybody, we go in alphabetical order. And so we're going to bring up the dub. That's wrestling. Coach Rich Dunn. We could spend the rest of the night talking about the accomplishments of this guy, but we're going to limit it to the 2020-2021 season. So the wrestling program also did something that's not happened in a long, long time. And so I believe the first year of the SWAC in 2013, we won the SWAC championship. And Coach Dunn and company, they rose to the challenge. Harrison is the perennial powerhouse in our league. Edgewood came on strong this year and really put up a great fight. But at the end of the day, over at Edgewood High School, the Rams were on top, and the Ross Rams were the 2021 SWAC Wrestling champions. So congratulations to them. And once again, a fitting recognition for Coach Rich Dunn. He was named the SWAC Coach of the Year. So congratulations, Coach Dunn. And then Coach Dunn also led a group of Rams. Now normally we'd have the state duels. We've had that for several years. We've actually hosted it for a couple of years. Unfortunately, they canceled that competition at the beginning of the season, so we didn't get a chance to qualify once again as a team to the state duels team championship. But Coach Dunn led a small group of our wrestlers to the Division II OHSAA state championship just a couple of weekends ago at this point. Those individuals are Mr. Ben Breaker. Ben qualified and wrestled well up at state in the 138-pound class. Congratulations, Ben. Jude Hess could not make it tonight, but Jude was the qualifier for state as a junior in the 182 class. And then finally, we've got Mr. Griffin Peacock. Griffin qualified and wrestled very well in the 285 weight class. I told myself I wasn't going to make that joke. I'm sorry, man. So congratulations to our wrestling program once again. Another year, another notch for a long and storied tradition here at Ross Rams with the wrestling program. So congratulations. And once again, thank you for having us again tonight. I would love to come back in a couple of months, fingers crossed. The way it's looking right now, I think we're going to have some pretty daggone good spring competitors. So looking forward to it, and thank you.
Mr. Bossy, do you have anything for Mr. Richards?
No, just, my memory's right. SWAC started in
13.
13?
12, 13.
Yeah.
12, 13.
Yeah. So it's been at least 6 straight years that some of the schools been dominating. And
Oh, yeah.
we turned it. This year we turned it.
I feel like we have.
We turned it. So I thank you, the Dunn boys, and appreciate that. Those are the two that I'd go back a long time with them, and the basketball programs. Boy, I tell you, it's nice to be up there.
Exciting
It's
stuff.
nice to be up there instead of that Mount Healthy Northwest answer all the time.
So the goal is to repeat that and then pack the stands with actual people instead of in space.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed.
Mr. Chanel?
Congrats to everyone. Jake, you had a lot of lot of champions, a lot of first time in a long time, so tough year to replicate next year.
We're going to try. Thank you.
Mrs. Hayes?
Just congrats, so exciting.
Thank you.
Mrs. Webb?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, congratulations to all of the fall athletes. I mean, truly an accomplishment for everybody, and I'm glad that although the season didn't look like it has in the past, they still have risen to the occasion and done a phenomenal job. Congratulations.
I have one thing, so obviously Coach Dunn knows this, I'm more of a basketball person. And this year with COVID, there's been a lot of different avenues to watch other sports, bowling, wrestling, everything. So I was at Applebee's in Hamilton when the Ross wrestling team was wrestling in state, and I was actually with a friend of mine who's a wrestling person. And I was trying to argue with him that we are a basketball school. Then the more I thought about it, we're not. So I gave in real quick. But I did hear something that the Alabama basketball coach did say. And they said they were an athletic school. So I do really think that athletically at Ross, we're very, very well-rounded. And a lot of that has to do with your vision, Jason Retner's vision, of building programs and doing things that Rich has been building a program for the whole time he's been here. And a lot of people model off of what he's done wrestling-wise with the little kids. I'll never forget basketball. There'll be 100 little kids back here wrestling, and it all starts there. It really does. So kudos to all that, and also with Dr. Kunkel and you trying to adjust the educational schedules for these kids to just give them a chance. And that was good too. So
Thank you.
look forward to the spring. Hopefully, Coach Turner and these guys get fired, because it sounds to me if they don't win a SWAT.
That's a new standard. And I think what everybody's just said really highlights the importance of the people we've got involved. We can have a vision, we can have a clear plan, but unless we have committed people to that vision and to that plan, it doesn't go anywhere. And so I can't say enough, enough about how great our coaches are. How great our families are in terms of committing to what really matters, and that's these kids. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to go on record saying I agree with wrestling, because I don't want Mr. Peacock to come up here and take me down.
I've seen his moves. He might have a chance.
Jake, thank you so much. Guys, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. So we'll move on. Obviously, Jake, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
So we'll move on, Dr. Kunkel, to C for superintendent recommendation.
Yes, Mr. President, I have 6 different votes individually. So the first one I'd like to vote on is a 6C. This has already been approved to go to Hawaii. This is the band moving venues to San Antonio, Texas, March of 2022. So just a change in venues.
Perfect. Do we have to vote on this?
Yes.
Okay, can I get a motion to vote on Schedule C? Mrs. Hayes, can we get a second?
Second.
Mr. Chanel, Mr. Kinsel, can you call roll, please?
Yes. Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Chanel?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Bossy?
Yes.
And Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.
Mr. President, next, which is 6D, is a one-year rollover of our collective bargaining agreement with the Ross Educational Association. And that is for teachers. And also in front of you is a percentage base increase for admin and also support staff.
Yep.
That's 6D.
Yep. Can we get a motion at 6D? Mrs. Hayes, can we get a second?
Second.
Mr. Chanel? Mr. Kinsel, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Chanel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
And Mr. Bossy?
Yes.
Next, we have 6E, which is a resolution to suspend an administrative contract for your approval.
Can we get a motion to vote on 6E? Can we get a first, please? Mrs. Hayes, can we get a second?
Second.
Mr. Chanel? Mr. Kinsel, can you call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Chanel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
And Mr. Bossy?
Yes.
Next, we have 6F, which is the revised calendar for 2021-22. That will be up on the website tomorrow.
Gotcha. Can we get a motion to approve 6F, please, the first?
Motion.
Mrs. Hayes, the second.
Second.
Mr. Chanel, would you call the roll, Mr. Kinsel?
Yes. Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Chanel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
And Mr. Bossy?
Yes.
Next, we have 6G, which is our personnel schedules, A, B, C, D, and E in front of you for your approval.
Can we get a motion to approve 6G? Can we get a first, please?
Motion.
Mrs. Hayes, second.
Second.
Mr. Chanel, would you call the roll, Mr. Kinsel?
Yes. Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Chanel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
And Mr. Bossy?
Yes. Finally, Mr. President, we have 6H, which is the athletic master plan. As you know, we have inside millage moved over to permanent improvement. The next logical step is to contract with MSA, which is the architects, to start planning our facilities. This is not to exceed $17,000, again, to start planning the athletic facilities.
Can we get a motion on 6H
Motion.
to approve? Mrs. Hayes first. Can we get a second?
Second.
Mr. Chanel? Mr. Kinsel, could you call roll?
Yes. Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Chanel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
And Mr. Bossy?
Yes.
Will you take a break, Mr. Kinsel? or-
Uh,
You did call me Mrs. Van Winkle, so I was happy with that.
All right.
Now we'll move on to you, Mr. Kinsel. Number 7, treasurer.
Yeah.
Reports and recommendations, please.
Okay, I'd like to have a vote for 7C, resolution for amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission of Butler County.
Okay. Can we get a first for 7C?
Motion.
Mrs. Hayes is the first. A second, please.
Second.
Mr. Chanel. Mr. Kinsel, could you call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Chanel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
And Mr. Bossy?
Yes.
7D, resolution accepting the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission approval of participation in the School Energy Conservation Financing Program.
We have a motion to approve 7D. Can we have a first, please? Mrs. Hayes. Second.
Second.
Mr. Chanel. Mr. Kinsel, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Chanel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
And Mr. Bossy?
Yes.
7E is resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation energy bonds in relation to the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission.
Can we get a motion to approve 7E, please?
Motion.
Mrs. Hayes with the first. Second, please.
Second.
Mr. Chanel. Mr. Kinsel, could you call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Chanel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
And Mr. Bossy?
Yes.
And finally, 7F is a resolution to award the general contractor contract to Leo J. Braumeyer based on bids received from an open bid process.
Can we get a motion to approve 7F? Can we get a first, please?
Me.
Mrs. Hayes. Second.
Second.
Mr. Chanel. Mr. Kinsel, could you call the roll?
Yes, Mrs. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Chanel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle,
Yes.
Mrs. Webb,
Yes.
and Mr. Bossy.
Yes.
That's it, right?
Yep.
Okay. We'll move on now to the legislative report. Mrs. Webb, the floor is yours.
Okay, and this won't take that long. We only have 2 items. One is, I believe it was Saturday, House Bill 67 was signed by our governor, which eliminates the testing requirements for graduation. So we're still seeing a lot of school districts that are administering a statewide test, but it no longer is going to count against a student graduating. So they're going to be looking at their current grades over their test scores. So that's good, considering this year has just been crazy. Another bill through the state that just happened, I believe it was yesterday, was Senate Bill 22, where both houses of our Ohio Congress overrode Governor DeWine's veto, with his ability to have longer than 30-day mandates. So I guess how this is going to impact us here in Ohio, particularly where I kind of see this going, it doesn't go into effect for 90 days, is whether or not the mask mandate will be in place starting the school year next year. I think a lot of people have kind of wondered that question, given that he only has 30 days to put something in place before our Congress can decide they don't want that. So those are just the two items that I have.
Anybody have any questions? Mr. Boston? Mr. Chanel?
No, thank you.
Before we go to Butler Tech Report, I don't know if many people followed the agenda. Under the Treasurer's section, they're monthly reports as well that we don't necessarily have to vote on. That's kind of why we bounced around. But some of those are just monthly reports that are just uploaded each month. Going now to the Butler Tech Report. On board docs, you can see there's a student success newsletter, plus in the board packets. Gina put that at the very end. There is a feature for some Ross students on the very front page regarding Smart Tracker app that they created, focusing on locating missing students in the event of an emergency. So if you go to board docs, you can read that entire article. It's not very long, obviously, but the students that were spotlighted, I do want to mention their names: Eric Eschenbrenner, Austin Burns, Joe Shadokati, and Gabriel Creedy, I believe you said? Creedy? So those were the students that were involved with that app that they created, that they won a prize, and you can read that on the newsletter. Sticking with trying to be Ross-related and Butler Tech Report, Mr. Graff had a lot of 4 or 5 things I wanted to hit on. The first thing he said, that this could end up being Ross-related, that there's legislation or people through the Ohio Department of Education, so maybe Mrs. Tompkins knows this or not, but they're talking about making FAFSA a graduation requirement. So the students and family filling out FAFSA reports as part of graduation requirement. He openly said in public he was not in favor of that, but that is something that could be Ross-related that he brought up. The other thing Ross-related, and I brought this up last month, the natural science building that's being built on off 63 in Monroe. Just a couple dates. In May, they're going to finalize the building design and then do the bid process and site work in May. And then in June, they're going to try to approve the bids right immediately and break ground. So anticipation is not next school year, but the following, to have the natural science building opened up for Butler Tech. The other thing that we approved that is definitely going to impact our students at the board meeting was the approval of the 21-22 calendar. And if you guys remember last year, they did the second semester 5th day experience. They had all the data and all that stuff. The board approved the 5th day experience to be the entire school year, the entire academic school year. There was a lot of positives with that experience, and Mr. Graff is really revolutionizing education in the technology world. So that's something that the board approved, and that'll affect our students here at Ross. Student application process at Butler Tech. There's approximately 1,600 people applied. He said 1,445 if you had to be exact, but they said there's some ones that didn't fill it out all the way. So approximately 1,600 students applied for Butler Tech. They interviewed a little over 1,000 students for the positions, various positions at the school, and they're going to accept only 670, which is tough, but they're on a cap, so that's the spots. Amy may be able to hit this on next month or something, but they're working really hard with the new financing bill that's out there. The Butler Tech and all the others are really trying to eliminate that cap, and that would really help Butler Tech. And then the last thing, the most important thing, is senior graduation is on for Butler Tech. 100%, they're doing it. It's going to be at Xavier Cintas Center. The only details that are still forthcoming are they may split up some groups. They may even split it up over a couple days. They're really working with Xavier to try to maximize the amount of people they can have in that building and not selling it short to any specific group. So those are things that were Ross related for Butler Tech. Anybody have any questions for us?
Just one, and I'm not 100% sure on this. So are the students going to attend the Natural Science Center at that location next year? Or are they going to be moving them to like D. Russell Lee, or do they know yet exactly what
They
they're doing?
think they're going to be able to attend there. That was a question that came up at the board meeting, or where are we going to displace those kids? Because I don't have the drawing now, but where it's going to be built is not necessarily on top of where it is now. They want to preserve, that farm was given to the Monroe School District from a family. The land, I believe, was given to them, and there's a farmhouse there, and it was given to the district for free. And they worked out a deal with Butler Tech, but Butler Tech really wants to preserve that house and some of the things there. So I think they're going to stay there as long as they possibly can. So, to your question. Anything else, Butler Tech? Okay, we'll move on now to board comments. We'll start with Mr. Boston.
There's still a vision to have a live Capitol Conference in November, and plans are still ready to hit the green button on that, so that's good news to me. In the meantime, there's one other educational program for board members that exists, and it is annual. I've been to it several times. It's called the Board Leadership Institute. It's in Columbus, Ohio. It's a Friday, Saturday program, but unfortunately can't get together yet. So it's going to be virtual, April 23rd and 24th. It's a quite extensive period. It isn't just a couple hours. I don't have, my notes here don't tell me how many hours you commit to, and the district will pick up the tab on it. But it's definitely something worth going to, just to be able to interact with other board members from across the state, as well as to get firsthand operational meetings with key people in Columbus, Ohio. So if that's of interest to you, we can go online to the OSBA website and look up the topics that will be presented in this particular weekend, Friday, Saturday presentation. It's in the daytime. But I would at least encourage you to look at it, take a look at it. And plan on going. There's so much to learn yet, so much to learn. You think you know what's going on, but it's important to know what's going on a statewide basis. We've been talking about getting approval on energy reductions, and there's one thing we did last year, last summer, that kind of got, it was big time. We put in new light bulbs. We had some, my memory's right, 8,000 bulbs donated. Did we accept a donation on those? Somebody, I can't remember. But 8,000 bulbs that will have reduced our energy consumption this year. So all we're doing in next year will reduce it lower, but that's actually the biggest energy drain, the light bulbs. And having these new bulbs in this year should drive our electrical usage significantly down. And only from that point then on, there's other programs. Now, one of the energy reductions we didn't do the gymnasium here. and 8,000 bulbs, and that's part of the new program here. That will save us a significant amount of money. But the big savings occurred last summer where we made those changes in the bulbs, and all through the buildings here in the Ross school system. So, and we continue to beat on with some additional energy savings here that we're going to have and finance during the summer here.
Mr. Chanel?
Start to thank our guest speakers tonight. Jake, congratulations to all that they accomplished. Coach Roberts, Coach Stewart, Coach Dunn. Mr. Perry, just sitting here thinking even more about your presentation. And it just thinking about all the kids that haven't been in school all year, that maybe still even aren't in school. I think that presentation really showed how important that is, and how much, my hope is that if we ran the same numbers across the district, we'd see similar trends, and that just how important it is to have our kids in the schools and how great a job our teachers are doing given the circumstances and everything like that. So just as I've sat here the last hour or so, just it's really impressive, and I think it's really key and my big takeaway from this evening. So thank you. That's all I have.
Mrs. Hayes?
I feel like we always piggyback off each other. It's the race to talk first. So congrats to all the players and the coaches for winter sports and all of their hard work and achievement. We're so proud of their success and continued for their academic and athletic successes. And thanks to Tom Perry again for your presentation. Again, echo your sentiments. Appreciate all your hard work and how much your dedication. It clearly shows for your Morgan and Ross local students for all that you do. So very much appreciated.
Mrs. Webb?
So I know we talked about winter athletes tonight, and I do congratulate all of them and the coaches. But our middle school Lego League robotics has had some significant success as well. So I just want to thank all of them, just trying to get through the pandemic and competitions and working with materials and building things. I love Jennifer Knoxville's updates, and they've done great things too. So I want to congratulate that middle school group. And then G Foods is back in the spotlight again with the Changemaker Challenge, which is a national competition which is hosted by T-Mobile. And they are one group that has submitted their entry for what they're doing to change the world for the better. And that's what the motivation is behind the competition, whether it be technology, education, or the environment. So we will see how they fare. I think the first week in April is when all of the submissions are due, and then they'll determine who the winners are. And I believe the same group, it was February of 2020, they went out to Seattle, Washington, right before COVID hit. So they had actually advanced in this competition last year. So congratulations to them as well.
And Dr. Kunkel, you have G Foods coming May?
In May, and then in April we'll be out of hall from Alabama.
Yeah.
So those are the next two presentations.
Just a couple thank yous to Mr. Perry and Mr. Richards as well. Wishing the spring sports and extracurricular groups the absolute best to end the school year. This is not endorsed by Ross School Board or the schools, but I want to put something out there. On Facebook, our community is doing Adopt a Senior. I talked to my wife about it coming in. I haven't seen it yet on Facebook, but I know it happened last year. It's just a little extra thing that our community members get on and adopt seniors that, they'll put a blurb about, my son or daughter likes this kind of candy or this, and people in the community have the ability to jump on and adopt them, and just as a family kind of do something for those seniors who, as juniors last year, a lot of stuff was taken away from them, so just another really neat thing. Exciting to see the news about our graduation and prom, that the high school administration is working really hard on those two things, and I know there's pride on details, so I don't want to give that out.
There's
but-
not.
But they're working hard, we're gonna make it happen, and it's gonna be awesome. And one last thing that I did see on there too, and I was saying something to Mrs. Hayes about this, that they are gonna continue the tradition of doing a senior parade through the community, which last year we did that because the kids you weren't here, Dr. Kunkel, but they weren't allowed to have graduation in person, so they had a community parade where they went through certain neighborhoods, and the seniors did, and drove by, and the entire neighborhood, or at least our neighborhood, they were out at the sidewalk, just waving to the seniors. So it's a way that our community can see the seniors, because they may not go to the Millette Hall or whatever, but they want to say, hey, thanks, congratulations, and that was pretty neat. So I'll formally invite you to our neighborhood.
Okay.
There's 3 of us.
3 board members.
Mr. Shea, so you can come and see that. It's really neat. It's really neat. So from the pandemic, I guess that was one really positive thing that hopefully, I did read that right. I'm not putting pressure on Brian Martin here, but I think I read that they're going to do that again.
I was at work, I didn't get that far.
Yeah, so if they didn't, then you might want to have a meeting with them tomorrow morning. But I think I read that somewhere, so if I didn't, I apologize. Brian's going to be mad at us, but he can pull it together. So it's pretty neat. So with that being said,
Imagine this big boat coming down the subdivision road,
oh yeah,
a boat, a monster
oh, that's
sailboat.
what she, yeah.
I said I'm gonna get my boat out of storage.
It's really neat. It is something that the entire community, Ed, I think you made a sign, right? If I remember right. I mean, it's really neat. And the kids,
Monster sign.
yeah, it was pretty cool. So the kids drove by. Nobody went to Mr. Chanel's house. He lives out in the country, but but he can come into our neighborhood too. But anyway, it was really, really neat. So I read that somewhere. So hopefully we're still doing it. With that being said, do you have any reason to go to executive session?
We do not.
No reason. So with that being said, we'll entertain a motion to call this meeting to an end. Can we get a first?
Motion.
Mrs. Hayes, can we get a second? Mr. Chanel?
Second.
Mr. Kinzel, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Chanel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.